And welcome everybody to day one of the San Diego Historical Games Convention, the first ever virtual convention. I'm Mo from Mo's Game Table, and I have with me Harold Buchanan from Harold on Games, and it is his convention, and he is the one who started the live convention, but this year we can't do that live, so we're doing it virtual. And so far, so good. Everybody's had a really great time today, and I think there's been a lot of successful events. Harold was just kind of telling me some of the stuff backstage, but I'll let Harold take it from here and talk about what he's done today, as well as what he's heard so far in feedback.
Hey Mo, thank you for having me on, and it's been a good day. We've had a good couple of days. As a matter of fact, I just got off a recording of Harold on Games where we had invited participants that were at the convention, of course, and then invited a group of coin designers. So, of course, the Volko was there, as you'd expect.
There you go.
But we had Mark Herman talking about his thing, and which, of course, his Fire in the Lake, but is also becoming Fall of Saigon, which is going to be a two-player coin.
Okay.
They just redid the bots for Fire in the Lake 2, and so those are going to be coming out soon. And then let's see, we have Brian Train, who cracks me up. We had Morgan Guillaume-Rete,
Nice.
who also cracks me up. And then we had, who else was there? Mike Berticelli, who was the developer on Liberty or Death, but several of the other coin games. We had Bruce Mansfield, who did Gandhi.
Okay.
And then Vez showed up late. Not that Vez was late, but he showed up and didn't have much time to kind of share his experience, but he was around. So we had a decent number. I'm trying to remember who else. Who am I leaving off? But that was great, right? That was a good cross section of coin designers and a lot of good stories and some serious stories and some funny stories and great to kind of celebrate all of our connection around coin. And that was the last event. There have been all sorts of stuff going on today. I got up early for me, about 8 o'clock California time.
Wow.
I grabbed a quick shower and then we did a coffee meeting, and there were all sorts of people in and out, lots of discussions and lots of debate about games. We've continued the discussion. Chris Bennett said the coin get together was wonderful. Thank you, Chris. That's great to hear. So glad that's good. Pat Wells says it's been a great day and a lot going on. I agree with Pat. So we started with coffee. We had a lot of people in the coffee meeting, and just kind of plotting out what we're going to do, and talked a lot about what people are playing and what they've been playing, and I was in there from 8:30 till about 10. And,
nice.
So that was coffee was great. And then a whole series of events occurred. I saw Cole Worley was working on an event with Oath and had some players in. Volko started his Vassal clinics with Nevsky this morning, and I think we have that recorded. I think we have the Liberty or Death 3 o'clock. Volko and I did Liberty or Death with a big group. I think we had 24 people at one point in there. Once again, that's something you really can't do in a face-to-face convention, is get 24 people together and have a meaningful experience where you can hear the designer talk about the game. And in this case, we were able to kind of watch what was going on, and everybody else could hear what Volko had to say about the game and what I had to say about the experience. And we went through a teaching exercise with a small group of people, but once again, everybody else was able to watch over our shoulder and also pop in and pop out, right? I mean, really, that's a disruption in a face-to-face convention. And we had people jumping in and jumping out. There's Kabuki Kid. Hello. Good to see you again.
Kabuki.
Kabuki is a proud owner of a tank duel, as I recall.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was it. It's been a lot. And that's just the stuff that I've done, right? I mean, we've had lock and load games going on the whole day. Chris Bennett said he sat in on Dan Bullock's Iran 79 game, and that's awesome. I actually invited Dan to join us, so he may pop in at some point. But yeah, a lot of good stuff going on.
Well, the funny thing is, on Discord, you always have in your status, it always says playing Twilight Struggle. It's like the 24/7 thing. You're always playing Twilight Struggle.
And it's true. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's it's a great game. It's been around for a long time now. It's evergreen and is a very popular game. And speaking of Twilight Struggle, here's Ananda Gupta, who's joining us tonight. This boom pops in. And there you go.
Hello, gentlemen. How are you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
Great, Ananda.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
And do you pay? Is there a fee for this, or should I take this down?
I mean, I was going to offer a free one for to add to the door prize pile. But you didn't give me the raffle rules.
That's right. Sorry about that. No, GMT did make a very kind contribution of a number of games.
Oh, that's great.
And Gene lets me pick. Gene lets me pick, and of course, that's one of them, right? So.
How do you say I'll take this or that? If Gene says you can pick, I'd say all of them.
Yeah, that's right. It's hard, They are wonderful supporters of this convention, and so GMT gave us, and Gene would give us what we asked for, so I try not to abuse that.
Sure.
So I said, how about 5 games, and he said, great, just let us know which ones. And of course, my goal is to pick the ones that are kind of popular and hot at the time. And either that, I also usually include Combat Commander and Twilight Struggle. And I'm not just saying that because Ananda's here, but I think that's a good mix. And if somebody doesn't or hasn't played Twilight Struggle, they need to. So I try to get that out, spread the gospel.
Well, I certainly agree with that. However, I just right before this, I was learning Combat Commander. I'd never played Combat Commander, and I played Combat Commander for the first time at the virtual San Diego Historical Games Convention. Started a couple hours ago. Bryce, who's another attendee, I posted in the Opponents Wanted channel, "Hey, I need to learn Combat Commander," and I was immediately it took a very short period of time for someone to say, "Yeah, I'll teach you how to use it with Vassal." And so yeah, we used Vassal, and now we played the Fat Lipsky scenario, and that is a neat game, I must say. That is a neat game. I felt bad that I wasn't able to commit to hosting an Imperial Struggle event in enough time. My work schedule, I wasn't sure whether I'd be able to take time here, but things went well, and I got everything squared away. So now I'm here for the whole weekend, and I was able to get with some of the convention staff. I was able to get a room set up, and so I'll be able to demo Imperial Struggle and the amazing Vassals module that Joel put together for it tomorrow at 4. So if anyone wants a walkthrough of Joel's amazing Vassal module for Imperial Struggle, I'll be around at 4 tomorrow to show it to folks. And he was Joel's so amazing. He was a wonderful. He was crucial in the playtesting of Imperial Struggle, and he and I had a number of good games back and forth.
Great.
So I hope people will come. I hope people will come and see Imperial Struggle.
Yeah, well, I don't know how they could, right? I mean, I don't know how they could say no. We just need to make sure we get the word out. That's the thing. If people know about it, they'll be there. And I'll at coffee tomorrow. I'll put the word out for sure. But
I appreciate it.
Edgar Melick, who is one of is the guy that the brain that runs the Matrix here at the online convention. He and I have played that. I think I told you. He and I have played that. I don't know. We've played 6 games kind of since it came out, and played by Vassal, of course, given the pandemic.
That's
and
some good play.
He beats me like a drum every time, and I'm tired of it. And it's humiliating, but he's even offered to spot me victory points.
Wow.
Control, right?
Yeah.
And
That can.
it's terrific. So I need to fix that. I need to. So I might just stop by and hope that you can give us some tips as to how to beat opponents as well.
The game, yeah. With Imperial Struggle, we really wanted, Jason and I really wanted to provide a different kind of mastery curve than Twilight Struggle presents, right? Twilight Struggle's mastery curve, is baked into the uncertainty, the sort of limited uncertainty of the scoring and the knowledge of the large deck and understanding of the relationship of a lot of map relationships. And Imperial Struggle tries to dial some of that stuff back, right? By having a much smaller event deck. And by having map relationships that are a little more explicit, right? Like control these spaces and you get this special power, right? We try to bring that, try to make that less subtle. You know what I mean? And but then also, and sort of with the space that we buy there, we then bring in more subtle elements that aren't in Twilight Struggle, right? Which is why we're hoping that Twilight Struggle veterans like yourself, kind of it gets you out of your comfort zone a little bit, but still looks like something worth mastering. That's kind of how we were hoping to deliver. That's kind of the experience. One of the experiences we're hoping to deliver.
Yeah. No. Well, if you're trying to make me uncomfortable, is basically what you're saying. You've done that. And,
it's just payback for the remark about should I take down the game.
That's right. Well, no, it's real and it's challenging, and I look forward to solving some of the problems that I've created for myself in doing that. Right. I think the game does present, the mastery curve, as you say, is in Twilight Struggle is just, in my mind, the single biggest factor is the knowledge of the deck and its implications. And,
we were really trying to dial back on that. With this one.
So not
that that's a bad thing, obviously.
And there are components that you could memorize, but I don't think anything is going to give you the advantage that you get in Twilight Struggle. So,
so we have a comment. We have a comment in the chat says, and maybe don't play France. So this is something. I make this point. I think we even talked about this a little bit on your podcast, but game balance is an interesting thing, right? Game balance is not the same between players of different experience levels. That is to say, in an asymmetric game, two asymmetric sides being played by players of novice level, side A may have the advantage. But if you have exactly the same game and both players of equal skill are at master level, the other side may be favored, right?
Yeah.
And I think with Imperial Struggle, what we're seeing is people kind of learning that France has more explicit power early on. If the British player is not looking too much at the conditions that enable the French power, right? The first couple times, and this is something that you just see in games that have powers on cards, right? Like the first time you play a game that has powers on cards, all of your cognitive load is going to be on looking at your own stuff, and you're not going to be, the way you find out what your opponent's power is by it happening to you, right? And they tell you about it, right? But if your opponent has a bunch of cards that say if A then B, and you don't know that, right? Because it's just your first or second time playing the game and you've never played that side. Maybe you've only played it once and you didn't even think about those cards. It doesn't occur to you to deny A so that they don't get B, right? But of course, B is going to be stronger than an unconditional power, right? Like obviously, if I tell you, hey, you have two choices of power, if A then B or just B, then you're always going to choose just B because you don't have to do anything to get it, right? And so France has a little more of that going on in the beginning, where they have more conditional stuff that that British players who are still learning don't know to turn off, right? Don't know to switch off for them. And I think I'm not saying the game is balanced. It's too early to tell. And we thought Twilight Struggle was balanced, right? So I can definitely be wrong here, but definitely there's definitely more to learn. There's definitely more to learn. The two sides don't have, they're very asymmetric in that respect.
Right.
one more thing I want to. Well, sorry, I've kind of nattered on for a while.
Keep rolling. That's
go.
Love it.
Well, I talk about balance because over the last year at my day job at Riot Games, I've been working on a live game, Teamfight Tactics, which I streamed a little bit today. It is not a historical game by any stretch, but so it's a little bit off topic for the convention. But it's a pretty good game, if I do say so myself. And I hope if I do plan to stream it some more over the weekend if people want to hop in and watch some Teamfight Tactics. But balance in that game is the most daunting balance problem I've ever had to engage with in my entire life. That is the balancing act that happens in Teamfight Tactics is crazy as a designer. It's just utterly crazy. And if you want to see why, you can come watch me stream it.
Well, it's got fighting in it, so there's going to always be a balance in fighting. But when you talk about fighting, sometimes there's non-fighting, like we see in the latest coin game, Gandhi. And speaking of Gandhi, we have Bruce Maxwell.
Oh my goodness, here. Bruce Mansfield.
Hello.
And just want to bring him in.
Yeah. Hi, Mo. Hi, Anetta. Hey, Harold again.
Hey,
How's
Bruce. How are you? Good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Well.
Yeah, we were talking about balance, and Ananda, if you can get us a link, we can publish a link to your live stream for your latest.
I'll just do it in my Discord, in the Discord for the convention.
That's perfect. But is an issue of balance for Bruce and I at our 4-player games. I actually think you can be lazy in a 4-player game and rely on the players to do some of that balancing for you, right? Yep. I think that's the reality. But it's interesting. I had at one of these conventions, I had someone walk up to me and say, Harold, I don't know how you could ever win if you're the British playing Liberty or Death. And so he said, we played it X times, and we just can't get the British to win. So I walk him over to my buddy Michael Vilbert, who's around at this convention, and I said, I want you to meet Michael Vilbert. Michael Vilbert believes that he can win every game if he's the British. So, and it just goes to show it's I hate to say groupthink, but it's almost groupthink, right? That occurs in pods of players. So South China Sea, and Ananda, you haven't seen this part, but you've been very helpful to me in the game, in developing that game. But there's an imbalance in the game. The Chinese have a better geographical position, right, from the start, and so they have an advantage in the game. But I don't tell you what I think the advantage is. The players have to bid for who wants that advantage and how much you want to pay for it, right? So it's not unlike how Twilight Struggle starts off now, right, where you bid to for a side. But I do that from the start, and we know that the Chinese have the advantage. And so it's going to be interesting to see how players respond to that, right? Because I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm not going to tell you where I would start. You set Twilight Struggle at 0. I'm not going to tell you any of that stuff. You're going to have to decide after multiple plays with the people that you play with where you think it is, and then that will be defined through the bidding. And there are a handful of people that are telling me that people are going to just blow a gasket over that, but it will be interesting to see.
Well, for that game, it should be easy to pick up. When you think about it, it's the lunchtime series game, so these are meant to be faster playing games. That means a lot of people will be playing them, and it shouldn't take too long for that to be picked up on and talked about online.
Right.
Yeah. No, if you can play it in 30 minutes, it should be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the more reps a game gets, the more the faster people will. I don't want to say figure it out, but figure it out, I guess.
Right.
I do want to answer Trevor's question in chat, which was, did I have a hand in the Mechs versus Minions board game? And the answer is not really. I play tested a little bit. I gave notes on several sessions, but I was not on the production team for that. I will tell a story that this group will find particularly funny, which is the rule book for Mechs versus Minions. Is not, it's very well produced and very well illustrated, and it's very slick. And boy, does it leave out a lot of cases. It leaves out a lot of ways that the cards can interact. And I remember sitting down with the editor, and she told me, the editor of the rulebook, and she told me, she said, I'd never worked on a board game rulebook before. I didn't realize, and I was like, like even a technical editor. She wasn't a technical editor, although a technical editor did look at it. But again, this technical editor had no experience really playing or doing board games, and I was like, I feel like you should have come to me. I felt like the Godfather, right? Like, you should come to me, come to me and ask me for my friendship. I would have been able to help you out.
I'll give you the answer, but you're going to owe me one favor.
Yeah, exactly. Someday, and this day may never come. Right. So I wish I could have helped out on that more, but.
And we've got another person joining us, Scott.
It's Scott. It's the Mansfield brothers.
That's
Good
right.
to see you guys.
That's how we roll.
Who's older? Bruce or Scott?
I am by a couple
I
of
figured
years.
that, Bruce. I just thought it'd be nice and ask.
I have less hair. That's what it is.
Well, Harold, the photo went really well. It was so much fun. We had I don't know, maybe 10 to 12 people ended up coming, and really great questions, and it was fantastic.
That's awesome. And the great thing is you recorded it for posterity, I hope. Yes.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. So Scott, you're a professional photographer.
Correct.
And for those that didn't hear our discussion this morning, you're a professional photographer, and you decided that you would share with us a session about how to take photos.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
And how do you organize it? How do you think about teaching people?
Okay, so yeah, that was interesting. That I knew right away that I didn't want to talk about equipment. It's probably the most boring topic in photography, and the one that most people want to talk about. What camera do you have? What camera should I get? What lens is best, and so forth. And it's irrelevant. I mean, you can the techniques are the same whether you have a film 4x5 camera, which I can show you how to run, or your iPhone, which I can also show you how to run. And so I broke it down by first talking about what your story is, what is it you're trying to convey, what's your narrative, why did you pull out your phone? Is it to show friends that you're a cool move that you did, or is it the show the point out, the call out GMT, hey look Mark Simich, I'm playing your game. Is it the really wacky events? I mean, there's one that Bruce and I played. The example that I love is we were playing Labyrinth a couple of years ago, and maybe 2/3, 3/4 of the way through the game, I was the jihadist. I was able to get two plots in America. One of them was a WMD, and the other one was a plot 1. And there's a 50-50 chance he had 1 3-op card to pull. So which do you pull? Like, that's a really cool narrative, right? That's a story that you want to. And we ended up filming it. I took a picture of it. And we filmed.
Wait! I guessed right.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you guess right or not. That's irrelevant.
Tell details.
And so that's really cool. And so the image is a really macro shot of the United States with the 2 plot counters. And they're showing people, like, you isolate the subject. The story is that cool move, like that cool thing that happened. And if I show the entire board with the drinks and whatever else, it's way too distracting. So you isolate your subject, whatever that story is, and you kind of work backwards. I mean, once you know that the story is, I want to show you this neat thing that happened. Hey, Voco, check out this cool, my gosh, this is in the 30 games that Bruce and I have played of Labyrinth or whatever. This has never happened before. And you work backwards. So then from that, you're like, okay, I want to isolate it. So I'll get in close. Oh, it's a little bit too bright. So I'm going to drop the lighting down, and I want to vignette it. So I'm going to, burn in the corners a little bit, and that's it. So, right. But, talking about story, talking about the major things to be aware of as you're shooting your game. The most people's complaints are playing on plexi, and you have an overhead light and it gets reflections, how to get rid of some of those. Talking about, I poked fun at Mark Herman because that's always fun to do. He had this, pairing decent images with really fun text. And he had this image from a couple years ago of some con that he was at. And he went back to his hotel room and he was playing Empire of the Sun and having a drink and watching Tora, which is a really cool, that's a cool story. He's like 12 hours of straight play. And what's he want to do? He wants to go back to his hotel room and play more Empire of the Sun, which is fantastic. Unfortunately, the image was like this TV over here and a board game over here and this giant wall right down the middle, and your eyes just staring at this wall, and it just didn't really, kind of really make any sense. So talking to people how to like pair really fun text with, and then being mindful of the image and using those two can really have a really powerful narrative. So that's kind of how I go about it.
I can't wait to watch the video.
I appreciate that.
Meeple Lady said she enjoyed it.
Yeah, that was good to see her. Yeah,
that's very cool.
Ananda,
cool.
I just want to say super quick hello to Ananda.
Oh yeah, great
Scott,
to see you, Scott.
We haven't met before. Unless we did a GMT, but I don't know if we've crossed paths or not.
I don't think so. But I remember you took some amazing photos of Imperial Struggle for which.
Oh my gosh! I just want to lay out that my wife Sarah and I, it's our favorite game to play, and I think we've gone through maybe 15 or 16 plays of it by now.
Oh wow!
Love it.
That's value. Yeah. I like hearing that.
Yeah.
I like hearing value.
And it's equal back and forth. So we both, we jump sides and we both won almost equal amount of times, and it's fantastic. Just love it.
What's your playtime at right now?
Right now,
15 games. How long to finish the game?
Maybe 3 hours. Yeah, 2.5, 3 hours, give or take. Depends on. Sometimes the situations are a little more tense, but super fast. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, Edgar and I are at about 3 hours, but it's usually because there's an insurmountable lead at that point.
I have seen some enormous comebacks in Imperial Struggle. Comebacks. It's
one of my favorite things, to be honest, is how that's like, you're hurting on everything. You ignored Europe, and you haven't gotten a single commodity in your favor, and you're just pulling your hair out, and then boom, like the last thing you just hang. It's like Combat Commander, like you hang on to the very end because those final couple cards are gonna. Yeah.
So Bruce, tell me, how long does it take to play Gandhi?
It depends on who you're playing with. Scott and I, we can go through pretty quickly. I think 2 hours, maybe 2.5.
2 hours with 4 players.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think you got fast players.
That's like Cuba Libre length.
It can be pretty quick. I mean, it's 4 campaigns for the full game, but I think half the games end by the 3rd campaign round. So it plays. I think it's faster than some of the larger coins.
So it's 4. It's 4 instead of 6. By campaigns, do you mean like equivalent to propaganda?
Yeah,
cards?
prop round. Yeah. And those are 12
okay.
cards.
All right. So there's 4, and and you're able to get. Okay. So this is. I haven't procured a copy of Gandhi yet, because in general I've found the coin games to be too long for me. Like I've played Fire in the Lake twice, and I'm like, well, that's that was
for sure.
that was an overwhelming and rewarding experience that I think I've I think I'm not sure I can spend more time on that. But
I tick that box, not coming back, right?
Well, yeah, like. Yeah, but if Gandhi is a 2-hour experience, or once everyone's kind of got things down, and of course I love the subject matter. I'll have to come back to it. I'll have to put it back at the top of the GMT list for myself.
Well, I appreciate that. I think it does depend on the players, but there are fewer pieces and there are just fewer critical spots on the map that you can really focus on. But if you play fast, and Scott and I, we like to play pretty quick, and that's with banter in between. A GMT with Scott, what was that? Last year, we played a 4-player game of Andy and Abyss in 90 minutes, and we just blasted through.
It was with 4 players. It wasn't with bots.
No, 4 players. So that was you and I and Jason and Ariane. Yeah. So yeah.
Carl says in chat they use the whip, and boy, a lot of groups could benefit from a whip holder. Back in the day, at the George Washington Gaming Club, that was where Jason and I met, and Twilight Struggle was born. We would play games, and Jason had this habit of he would fake snore very loudly when anyone was taking too long. He would just make this
subtle.
Yeah, it was very very subtle, and yeah, that kept things moving. That's
very funny. So when Scott and Bruce came to a San Diego convention, and Ananda, I think it was before you moved down here. Mm-hmm. And I have a large version of Liberty or Death. It's 4X map, and
I've seen it.
Mini,
people
right?
very minis. Yeah, it's wonderful.
It's beautiful. And Pat Wells did the painting, and it's just phenomenal. So we were playing it, and I said, hey, let's just mix up the experienced players with the others. But I really didn't know Scott, and I knew Bruce was doing Gandhi. And so they line up, and they pull in 2 other guys. Well, they pull in O'Shane Balloon was one, and there was somebody else.
No, it's just
but
the
it
three of
ended
us.
up being
Yeah.
like it was just the 3 of you, and it was the brain trust, right? It was the smartest coin team in history, and everybody else kind of sat around. And the game, so Liberty or Death, I think it took 45 minutes, maybe an hour, and they were done because they won in at the end of the first campaign.
Nice.
As the Americans.
Nice.
Yes, and I actually I went through it all, and I counted everything out, and I said, okay, now let's move to the next turn. And Scott said, wait a minute, I think we won. and I went through a recount, and they had won exactly.
That's interesting. You bring up that game. That taught me one of the most valuable coin lessons, because so often Bruce and I just play together, and that was one of the few 4-player human turn, let alone like multiple teams. But throwing out credible threats, and we had played. I don't know. I wrote this note about it when I got home. It's like, oh, I got to remember this. And we had played some random event. It was some event like putting one of the Patriot bases in an Indian province. Like, it didn't make any sense. Like, it was like totally out of the blue or whatever. But they just like shifted over, and they like put all this attention on this one space. Like, oh, that's interesting. It's like playing for the people. Like, you're like, oh, am I going for DC? No, I'm going to go over here in the Ohio instead. Like, you're kind of throw those
big
out.
distraction. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Well, it's because they that's the first time they'd ever played the game, Scott.
I don't want to hear it. No,
you guys have played it
It's
100 times, and you destroyed these little babies.
Don't take
It was
it away
horrific.
from us.
So Bruce, are you going to? Is there going to be a giant Gandhi map with a Gandhi miniature, perhaps
Yes.
a Gandhi bobblehead? Because the reason I ask was that
I had asked for an orange meeple, but they weren't having it. So.
Oh my God.
So Ed Beach, if you play Here I Stand at Ed Beach's house, it is customary to have his Martin Luther bobblehead stand next to the board because he, in fact, has a Martin Luther bobblehead.
Maybe they could throw that in the 500th anniversary edition that's coming out.
Yeah, and it is common to bobble the Martin Luther bobblehead whenever the Protestant player is making hits a big roll.
I've gotten to be friends with Bruce Garrett, kind of through a guy who I met who lives over here in Oregon. We play every now and then.
Sorry to hear that, by the way.
And he was a riot to be around, but he's saying that he has some guy in Oregon that does huge
Gandhi Funko Pops.
Yeah. He has a bunch. His Empire of the Sun that's huge. It's like
It's that group.
So the big maps are so much fun. That's one of my favorite things about in-person conventions is seeing those, right? Seeing people's giant maps for various games. I played in 20 years ago, I played Euphrat and Tigris, a Euro game, and somebody had this enormous board for it with these handmade, wooden temples and stuff, and it was really cool. There's a question for you. So do I have any designs in the burner? Anything that is a solo design from just me? So that's a good question. Right now, my head's still in the 18th century, largely, as you can expect. I feel that right now I'm reading a lot about the French Revolution. Let's just put it that way. I'm doing a lot of reading about the French Revolution because the French Revolution is what's that?
That's a rich topic.
It is, and yet it's very undergamed. I think.
Right.
You have the States of Siege game, Levée en Masse from VPG, which I think is very clever, but is a States of Siege game, right? It's a States of Siege system game, and that's not quite that's not scratching the itch that I'm looking to scratch. There's Liberté, which is by Martin Wallace, which is a more abstract kind of area control stacked blocks sort of game. And then from 1993-ish, there's La Révolution Française by Azure Wish and a bunch of first-time French designers. And that is a source of great inspiration to me. I had a copy and then I got rid of it because I thought, well, I'll never play this again. And then when I got deeply interested in the French Revolution again, I had to chase down a copy on the secondary market, a few months ago, or a couple months ago, and it was hard to find and expensive, but when I opened it up, all the memories flooded back. It was great. And I was able to find one on the wonderful Constant Marketplace group on Facebook. That was where I found it. And that one is a 6-player game, which is, and it's a glorious, it's obviously a massive labor of love that is gloriously unplayable, which is my recollection of it as well, having played it by email back in the 90s. And it is it is a source of great inspiration to me. Although interestingly, as I read more and more history, I'm starting to see where they made some pretty serious leaps to get the 6-player lineup that they wanted. I think a guillotine bobblehead would be
it bobbles once. Yeah.
Right. Once per play anyway. Yeah. Maybe like, if you roll badly, you can guillotine your dice, just like, yeah.
How many times that would come in handy for a lot of people at conventions, especially? I think so.
So yeah, I've been reading a lot about the French Revolution. I think there's a game there, but I'm not fully convinced yet. Oh yeah, and there's the guillotine card game. I wasn't counting that one, but French Revolution, as Bruce said, is a rich topic for sure.
Do you have any plans to expand the Imperial out beyond the end date?
So that's a good question. The most obvious thing to do is to add to the event deck, because unlike Twilight Struggle with its reshuffle dynamics, where you have to be very careful about adding cards to the deck in ways that disrupt, what players I think correctly don't like having their knowledge invalidated by new content. And so that you want to add when you add content to a game, you want to make sure that players feel energized and invigorated and excited to sort of explore the alternate paths. What they don't want new content to do is say, hey, everything you learned about this game and spent, all those hours that you spent that we're so grateful that you invested, those are all kind of worthless now. Sorry. Right. So adding cards to Twilight Struggle doesn't necessarily do that, but it can cause the timing of the game to really be disrupted for your most devoted players who are very good at the game. And so but with Imperial Struggle, it doesn't have that problem because of the way the game treats the event cards. And so we have a bunch of cards that we would potentially add because obviously there's no shortage of events in the 18th century. And cutting them down to what we have in the box was like chopping off, back to guillotines basically, right? And in terms of adding more gameplay, this is something where expectations as a designer have to meet. They have to meet with the actual player's experience, right? So, for example, like I think that Imperial Struggle takes between 2 and 3 hours to play. That hasn't been players' experience yet.
Oh, wow.
Right? And players are taking. I read regularly about players taking 4, 5, 6 hours to play. And that just makes me super nervous about adding more game time onto the game, like adding another era, that either on the front end or the back end, like that makes me super nervous. Now, obviously this would be optional and players wouldn't have to play with any additional content. Right. But, you really, I'm not sure I ever want Imperial Struggle to be an 8-hour experience for anyone, right? To be a 7 or 8 hour experience for anyone. So, like not plans, because Imperial Struggle originally did include the Napoleonic era many, many revs ago, and I couldn't get it to work.
Oh, whoa.
And so I cut it. And then there was a little French Revolution minigame at the end that didn't work very well, and so I cut it. And so I already am a little gun shy about Napoleon working in the system, but I wouldn't want to. I definitely wouldn't want to rule it out necessarily. But I don't know. I haven't thought about the best way that could be delivered, if you see what I mean. And I've talked a lot, so I don't want to. Here's a plan. I want an 8-hour. Yeah, yes. I appreciate that. Thank you. I appreciate that you are willing to spend 8 hours on it. That's seriously, I do. That's very touching to me. Any chance of Imperial Struggle getting an app? That's up to Playdeck. Playdeck will make decisions about that that are based on many things. Yeah, that's up to them. They have a lot of their relationship with GMT is really strong, and so they and Gene will decide that. But I hope so. God, I hope so. That would be great. Let's see. So the other thing is that and this is going to sound maybe a little self-indulgent, but I work for Riot Games as a in the digital game space in my day job. Right now I work on a live game, Teamfight Tactics, talked about it a little bit earlier here. I already spend 5 days a week figuring out how to add more stuff into an existing game. Sometimes more than 8 hours a day. So the more I think about adding more stuff into existing games, that I have made as labors of love. My day job is labors of love too. That's one of the great things about being a video game designer during the day and a board game designer, all the rest of the time, is that. But I just feel like I already spend a lot of time in that problem space, and I spend a lot of time figuring out how to make things play well digitally and all that stuff. And so as I read about the French Revolution and I think about, how can I make this into an Imperial Struggle add-on, I increasingly think this would just be more fun to make as its own game. You know what I mean? And like thinking of my own game and then making that happen is something I don't get to do at my day job without lots of stakeholders being involved and lots of people. There are a lot of meetings, right? So a lot of pitches, a lot of slide decks, a lot of this, a lot of that, right? So yeah, I'm starting to treasure the opportunity to just make a new game. And not have to have a meeting about it. Yeah. Nice. Sorry, that was kind of long-winded, but
no, it's a fantastic answer.
There you go. Make a game about making a game without any meetings. There you go.
Making game.
Not plausible. Can't suspend disbelief.
Or you can do a coin game, and the propaganda card could be replaced with a meeting card. You could do something like that.
Right. Yeah. I'm not sure anybody would play it though.
Yeah. Might hit too close to home.
So Ananda, what about this Twilight Struggle offshoot in East Africa?
Oh, Red Sea.
Africa.
Red Sea. Yeah. So I haven't really been involved with that. That's been a Jason jam. The way we decided to do that is the way yes, John Longshore makes an excellent point in the chat as well. I haven't been doing working with Jason on that. The way we were collaborating on that is more about kind of slicing up topics, right? So he thought the Eastern Horn was super interesting. So do I, but like that was something he wanted to drive on. I'm thinking about some other sub theaters of the Cold War, and if Eastern Horn does well, it would have been great to like publish two at the same time, and like give players 2 Cold War sub theaters games at the same time. That would have been neat, but schedules didn't quite line up, and I find myself just wanting to read about the French Revolution right now. And so, and not about other Cold War stuff. So I don't rule out my own doing. I don't rule out doing what Jason is doing now and picking a place. Right now, my head's kind of in Latin America for that.
Well, you could always do an offshoot of Imperial Struggle like you're doing or like Jason did with Twilight Struggle. You can have a smaller game of Imperial Struggle, and that way you can kind of explore some of that stuff you were thinking about expanding into the base game. Instead of making the 8-hour game for some people, you could just make it like a 1-hour game, a smaller game, just like Horn of Africa.
Yeah, that is also super viable. and as I continue to read in the 18th century and continue to immerse, to sort of marinate there, that also is a likely type of project.
Very interesting. So, Scott, I have a question for you.
Shoot.
What's so visually? What's your favorite game? And you can't say Gandhi. I mean, given that you're the resident artist, which game do you love to take pictures of?
Imperial Struggle was one of the prettiest games I've ever seen. That Terry Lee just did a fantastic job. There's definitely some games that I get the photograph that I think the hardest one visually. This is the opposite of the question you just asked, but the hardest one visually had to be in. It wasn't SPQR.
That's the hardest designer.
Yeah, Alexander. That's right. It was Alexander, and that thing was horrendous. It was just this giant, just light yellow maps with just maybe 300 counters all lined up. And it had to been like 98 degrees in the studio. It was horrendous. I hated it every second of it. But in terms of beautiful artwork, I mean, I really like, and I think Imperial Struggles map is one of the prettiest I've ever seen. It's just outstanding. Yeah. That's probably my favorite.
I hate to bring it up, but is Imperial Struggle a war game?
It's got wars in it. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's at least maybe half the time you're playing it, it's a war game, and the other half it's not.
That's right. Depends on the phase.
Can you hurt the other player? That's the
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Now I got a quick question for Scott. You had mentioned something a little while ago that kind of perked my ears up, and you had said how there are ways to get around taking pictures when you have plexi on top of your maps.
Yeah.
Now, what I do for that, I just want to see if this is in the same vein of what you're doing, is I look at the angle that the light's hitting it, and if I can, I get up and I just kind of look for the right angle to where I get that light out of the shot altogether and just take the picture, and then I'll just crop it down with my phone to give it a better look.
That's it. Yeah, if you can turn off overhead lights, it's fantastic. Yeah. Any specular reflection, which is what basically all reflections are going to be specular. So just to keep in mind that the reflection is going to be equal to the angle of incidence. So it's which is about 45 degrees or so. And so you just get off angle. Yeah, just get off axis, stand up, move around. Yeah. A lot of people will just take out their phone, like from the sitting position and lean over and take a photo. And I was just trying to. The biggest thing is just like moving. The same thing with photographing your kids. I mean, how many shots do you have? You see people's kids and they're standing at 5 feet 8 inches or whatever, and they're shooting down at the kid. Like get down to the level, in fact, and don't have them look at the camera, and it'll make your images 100 times better. I mean, it's kind of the same thing with shooting games. Like get away from the normal angle, stand up, stand overhead. I mean, I did an example. I just happen to have Empire of the Sun, and so I thought I'd do a quick little example because I have a giant window in front of the game table, and it's just a nice, beautiful light. But each of those counters acts as like a little little mirror, and so it just boom, it pops right up in the camera. So if I shoot it from here, right, the window light is going to pop back up and get reflections on every little counter. Well, to get away from that, all you have to do is spend 10 seconds and stand up and shoot straight down on it. And you shoot straight down on it. In this particular case, there is no plexi. And the light is so side lit that all those reflections go away. If I could share the screen, then I could show you exactly what actually.
Sure. You should be able to.
There's a share screen button at the bottom.
Yeah. And the other thing too is like with coin or anything where you have 3-dimensional bits, like those wood counters or the cylinders, you can get that right angle if you can get natural light, especially. Oh yeah, a little shadow effect.
Shadows. Cool. Yeah. So Bruce, I just want to say, as a result of our conversation, I took advantage of the digital nature of this convention, and I just ordered Gandhi. So
thank you very much.
The ownership, it's been rectified.
That's great.
Harold, is this coming through?
It did. It's gone now, but it did for a moment. Yeah, there it is.
I'll hear back from you in a couple of weeks, Sonata, that it took an 8-hour ordeal to finish 2 campaigns. It's like, oh no.
Wait, it took 8 hours to finish 2 campaigns. When?
If that's what I hear back from you in a couple of weeks, that led you to believe it was a fast playing ish coin game.
So you guys see this image? You see the image of Empire of the Sun?
I do.
Yes.
I can see it. And one last thing, Ananda, on that topic. GMT has asked that you send it back directly to Bruce, and Bruce will pay you for the game if you don't like it. Forgot. Sorry, go ahead, Scott.
New
Harold's
product, we're unveiling it today.
You said this was a live stream, not a lie stream.
So
Well played, sir.
here's the reflection I was talking about. You can't really see it, and just standing right on top of it. That is literally 4 or 5 seconds to stand up from that to that, and that's that's same. So the same thing with talking about plexi. Just get off angle. Get away from those reflections.
Sure.
The other way to solve that plexi problem is to remove the plexi, right?
Yeah, I've talked to people about like changing the backgrounds because I often will shoot the GMT titles on different backgrounds because it just makes it more fun. And sometimes it's on concrete, sometimes it's on stuff I've made, and I found myself today. I was like, oh yeah, just change your back. Never mind, like because that's a whole different ball game, and that's like taking it to a level that probably no one else will do. So
now, Scott, my favorite photography subject in games in general, and I'm going to get in trouble with the union for saying this, so I apologize in advance. But it's photographs of designers that are posed, right?
Oh yeah.
The one that we all know the most is Mark Herman in his suspenders, standing with a stack of his games, right?
Yeah,
as if he conducts himself in that fashion.
Oh yeah.
Games. Jason has an excellent series of photos, Ananda, with one with a set of cards, right?
I'm going to need some URLs.
Yeah, we'll get them to you. And there's another. Jamie Stegmeyer has a fantastic post where he has a game in front of him, but it's on a coffee table.
Oh man!
And so he's down low contemplating this game, and it's just wonderful. So, any advice on designers taking those fluff pictures? I'd like.
Yeah, just don't
I don't
do
have
it.
one, and I'd like.
Yeah. Oh, you want one? Okay. Yeah.
And now I do.
Yeah. Get your. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I
remove the plexiglass.
Yeah. I can't stand pose images, whether it's with your family or I like the best images. I mean, the best people images, the ones they don't know that they're being photographed. And so you get this and it's super organic, natural. And if you could pair that with interesting lighting and a good crop and a nice angle, then it's so much. There's a war photographer I love, and he's been around for a lot of years. This guy named James Knackway, and he's been doing it. I can't believe the guy's still alive. And he's the calmest individual I've ever had the pleasure of listening to. And he's been everywhere. I mean, everywhere, the most disgusting events in the last 45 years. And none of his images are ever posed. It's all just beautiful crops in the back of the head. I mean, it's just gorgeous. And so to be able to get, so different experience, but you're at a convention or whatever. And the point, like my daughter now is clued in after so many years of photographing her. And so she'll just run away or she'll hide. But if I can get her from a distance, now I had to shoot from a distance, but I can get from a distance playing on the floor and she doesn't know, and there's beautiful window light. And it's just gorgeous. It's just so natural. And so my comment would be just get the designers in a natural setting in their natural habitat.
God, what is that?
Yeah, I do. Although I'm a little concerned if you're taking pictures of people that don't know that they're being photographed.
Is it from a van or something, or
as long as they're wearing clothes? I mean,
are they in their own homes?
Ask for forgiveness, not permission.
That's right.
Are you in your house when you take these pictures, and they're in their house?
I am not. I have an 800 millimeter lens. And
No, I mean, you've got some cameras set up in their house, and they don't realize it.
That's a whole nother facet. Yeah.
That's great.
See if I can get this going.
That's
here.
good. Well, Mo, we're coming up on the end of a long day, and everybody's exhausted, so it might be time to tie it up. Ananda, great to see you. Thanks for participating. Always love to hear you talk about games. It seems like I learn something every time. Scott and Bruce, I don't learn anything when I talk to you guys, but I appreciate having you around.
You keep asking us back, so we appreciate it. Thank you.
I love you guys, and just pumped that you're participating and around.
And apologies to anybody whose questions we didn't answer. I know I saw questions about books and what parts of French Revolution and stuff. I can talk about that offline without this group.
The feed will continue, Nanda. You can type responses to your heart's
Oh,
content.
okay. I didn't see I could. It looks
It's
like
on
I can't
YouTube.
enter comments during. Oh, it's on YouTube. Oh, there. Yeah. Okay, I have seen it. I have seen that picture. I have seen that picture. That is
awesome.
That is hilarious.
Looks like a Vegas magician right here.
It
And
does.
that's-
Can you zoom it all?
sure
This is a
does.
good one.
Was that the one that was in that article? Is that the he did an article? I don't remember. Yeah.
Wonderful. And there are no pieces on the map, so that's just everything's a mind game.
totally invalid. Exactly.
Right. It's
a
just in their
social
heads.
deduction
Yeah.
game.
Go ahead.
Yeah, they're so good. It's,
Metagame, basically.
Twilight Struggle, the social deduction game.
Yeah. God.
It's a 15-minute filler.
You are the commie. All right.
That hurts my soul.
Mo, can you find the Mark Herman? Just search for the Mark Herman
Sure.
one real quick.
I'll find that one here.
My son and his best friend and I kicked off Pandemic Legacy Season 0 2 weekends ago, which is a Cold War theme, right?
Oh,
like instead of virus cubes, you have communist. You have little red plastic spy, commie spies
Oh
everywhere,
my God.
and you have to go around and neutralize them.
Oh, that's so good.
Actually, Harold, there was a project I was going to run by Gene. I think the last GMT I just never got around. Well, obviously because everything got canceled. But I was going to do. We're going to haul a bunch of gear down and do what are called tin types of the designers at the warehouse during the weekend, which are just they're sensitized pieces of metal about 4 by 5 inches, wet plate. So you shoot them while they're still wet with chemicals. Has a really cool effect. It's a one-off. There's no negative, so you shoot it onto a positive. I built the camera for it, and I was gonna that'd be kind of cool. Might be so out there that they wouldn't really know what they are, but
Yeah, that's out there.
It's pretty out there.
It's out there.
Yes.
Oh yeah, look at that. This is suspenders. Yeah, okay, I have seen it.
That's the wrong thing here. I just wanted to get it up here as a slideshow. Look at that.
See, I have
What's-
nothing like that.
What's
I
the
have
blue?
nothing
What's
like
the
that.
blue box game? What's the VG game on the bottom of the stack on the right there? What game is that?
Is it Gulf? It's not Gulf Strike, is it?
Let's see if I can zoom in. Gulf
Yeah,
Strike.
it is Gulf Strike.
Yeah,
It is
yeah.
Gulf Strike. Okay.
Yeah,
He's got both
that's-
editions. He's got GMT and Avalon Hill for the people.
Yeah.
Yep.
By the way, the game that's on top of that is his best game ever. Flashpoint Golan.
Mhm.
Awesome.
It's
He's
his best game ever.
Yes.
Better than Empire of the Sun. Better than We the People.
Oh, I wasn't taking those into consideration. No.
Oh, okay.
It is as far as Cold War Mark Herman. Let's just call it Cold War Mark Herman, and he's done a ton of Cold War tactical and operational. It is the best. So
That dude's done a ton of everything.
yes, absolutely. All right, Mo, get us out of here, man.
So, Carl, what was the frightening part? That's the one I want to know. But we could talk about that in the after show lounge back in Discord for those who are part of the convention. We're going to continue on the discussion in the lounge area like we did last night. But thanks everybody for tuning in tonight, and thanks everybody for joining us. Really appreciate having all our guests on tonight, and we will be back for day 2, I should say, not game 2, day 2 tomorrow night with Harold, myself, and some special guests, and we'll see how things go out with day 2. But day 1's been a great success, and really appreciate all the participation, and of course we appreciate Harold and his convention, and thanks everybody. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good night.